from Kathy's Cute Creations. Today we're going to use the AccQuilt Go cutter again, and this time I'm going to show you how I'm cutting the fabric that I'm using and why I'm doing what I'm doing, and we're going to use the strip die. Alright, let's get started. Okay, take two is all I can say. The first one did not work. Thank goodness I checked it out before I went any further. Alrighty, so I open up the package, and this is the kind of thing you get, and you'll get this each time. It's gonna welcome you to the family. It wants you to register so they can keep track of the goes that you have. It gives you the tips, the cutting tips, which I explained the last time. And then this die here, I think you can read it there. Okay. And it is the strip cutter 1 inch, 1.5 inch, and 2 inch. Now keep in mind that when it's finished, after you've cut it and you've sewn it, it's a 1/2 inch. The one went to a 1/2 inch because you're going to use a 1/4 inch on each side to sew. So the one that's blue here, it ends up being a 1/2 inch. This one ends up being 1 inch, and this ends up being 1.5. So that size is perfect for making a border around your squares or your triangles or whatever. Also for any kind of sashing that you want to do within your quilt. And in this case, on the outside of this quilt that I'm working on, which you saw last my goodness, last month, I want to use this one here, which is the 2 inch, and finished it's 1.5, because I'm trying to break up the color, and I went ahead and decided to put the white strip on the side of it. So that's this. And now when I bought this die, they started putting the angled guidelines on it, which is what this is. That's what this is here. That's your 30, 45, 60. And then let me explain the die to you here, because this is a bigger one. If for some reason you put this on the floor, I mean, it fell off the table, you set it down a minute, it doesn't make any difference the reason you put it on the floor, but you put it on the floor or whatever. You don't want this on the floor if you have pets or children, because if they step on this and they step where this little piece right here is, see that little line, that thin line? That's where the blade is at. If you've got a big enough dog that's heavy and they step on that and they put pressure on that sponge right there, because that's all this is just a sponge, they could actually cut their foot on this razor. So if you're going to sit it up or put it anywhere, put it up on the table or set it up so that it cannot fall over. Or put it upside down if you want to put it on the floor. Now when you go to grab this, it's okay to grab it here on the sides, but you don't want to grab it where you've got your finger over that piece of that cut strip right there. Okay? Always make sure your hand or your finger is in one of these spots. Now, the 3 pieces that cut are this one, and this one. This is your outer right side and outer left side. But if you put your fabric, if you extend your fabric off of this, you'll get a cut here, and then this will be your leftover cut, and you could trim it down, or you could use it that size. So really they've given you 5 actual cuts if you use the right and the left, although those are going to be the same size. But it just depends. I mean, some people won't bother with something this small, but if you're doing a applique, or you're piecing little bitty quilts, or you're using the, I'm trying to think what the name of it's called. Bonnie Hunter does all the quilts where you take your strips and everything and they add to it. But you can do a lot of things with these strips. All right, so this is really a good investment if you're going to get the Go machine and you're trying to decide which are the best ones I want to buy for myself at the very beginning. That's what I'm trying to show you. The good ones that you want to get first time around so that you get the most use out of your machine and it's the money worth. Now, in my case, the reason I'm cutting this, like I said, was to break off the color, because my pinwheel at the very tail end on the right-hand side of my fabric, it just shows the pinwheel, but I want it to be white all the way around. So I'm going to cut this with the white. So let me show you the back of this, because every time you get one of these dies, they'll give you examples of things to make. So here it shows you the 2 quilts that they can make with a cutter. Just something super duper easy. And it shows you how you can put your strips together to cut. And then how to use it, because that's always on here too. And then what they did here was, with this one specifically, they did the scrappy rail fence quilt. Let me get a little closer. And that looks really, really good. And they actually use the different sizes. Lots of people go ahead and use the same exact size. But in this case, what you could do, and it's different than this, yes, you can make the same size of the 3 strips and put them together into a square, and then turn around and take a totally different color of strip and break it up into a block. That would look really nice too. So see, there's so many things you can do with this one specific die. It's just, I mean, you can't even think of all the ideas. And then it teaches you how to lay it out here, which if you used the same size, you would just put 3 of the same exact size and do the same thing it's showing you here, just differently. You could end up making, to me, if you use the little bitty one, that would be a nice little baby quilt or table runner or anything. All right, so that's it. And then here it always gives you the tips and the tricks, and it explains to you just like the other piece of paper right there. All right, so let me set this aside, and then let me show you what I do with my fabric. So my fabric is really long. This is one of those 108. So in this case, when you open it up here, it's got 4 layers and 4 layers here. And so all I did was flipped it over, smooth it out. This is what I lost in the last video, so I'm not going to do it again. I cut off my edge here. I measured my die. And my die is approximately 6 1/4, so I went with 6 1/2. And then I'm going to lay this on it like this. I'm going to go ahead and re-iron it. I've ironed it once. And then it's going to have a little hanging over the edge. Let me make sure I'm in the picture. Okay, so I'm going to have a little bit hanging over the edge, so then I can use these 2 sides. And if I wanted to, I could move it over to the right and not use the, since I'm moving the fabric to the right, I wouldn't use this left side. And I'd come up to the edge where my line is at. So then when I cut this out, and it cuts this last one right here, then I'm going to have a strip that's this big. Okay, and if all I got to do is cut down the side, which in this case I shouldn't have to because I've already squared this up and it's nice and straight, then I'm going to have 4 pieces that have been cut out with this. Now, I don't have the size of mat that goes with that. Hold on one second because I got a lot to show you here. So this is the mat that I have, and you can use a bigger mat, not a smaller mat. Now I have a whole bunch of dies that I have not shown you that take this big mat. So I'm going to use this big mat on it and cover this up when it goes through my machine. That was one thing I wanted to show you. Now the white is strictly for the border. But then I thought, well, I want to do something else. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it. Now, in this case, although this is really pretty, okay, it's pretty the way it goes from a light and a few dots down to darker and a lot of them. But this is the bias. And remember about cutting on the bias where it'll distort it? So rightfully, since I do not have any kind of stabilizer on it, and I'm not going to put a stabilizer on it, I would need to cut it this way. If I want to put any more squares or anything to make that baby blanket bigger. Right now, I'm still undecided. All right, I don't need to use this for a border because at the time I got this fabric, I bought, at another time, I had bought this Jelly Roll. It's the same exact fabric, and it's ombre confetti metallic. I have a plenty, and this is 2.5 inch strips already cut, and this is what I'm going to use on the border. So let's go ahead and let's start cutting this white fabric. All right, so I went ahead and I decided to do 2 of them, which is the 2 larger ones. And I noticed my mat is a little bit shorter. We're going to see what it cuts here. So what I'll have to do, because it only cuts so far down, and then it quits beyond this point right here. So let me take this off. I guess I can cut it straight across and keep my squares. Oh, that's a good idea, isn't it? To keep that. That's quite a bit of fabric right there. And this is my bias, so I don't want that in there anyway. All right, here we go. So let's square that up. Let's see if you, as you can tell, I haven't used this die yet. There we go. That's my scrap right there. So here's that, and that, and that. Okay, so let me see, what size are those? So they end up being 23.5 inches. And then you can connect them any way you want. And if you want to put a piece between, which I'm thinking about doing that with the color, now that I'm just looking at the quilt on the wall, I may go ahead and put some of these colors, which would be this size right here, and then I can decide whether I want to make it a square or, but since I already know that I want this size, what I can do is, let me go ahead and I can cut this size out for my colors, and then I'll have them done already. So let's do that now that I'm looking at it and thinking about it. So this is the size I want. And it won't make any difference. Let's see here. We're going to fold it. How are we going to fold it? Let me see. How do we want to fold this? Okay. I think we need to fold it at least a couple of times, so that I'm not limited to, now it's just a choice. Do I want to iron it? Look at all these decisions I've got to come up with now. Alrighty, so here's what I've done. The bigger piece, which was the part that actually hung off, when I trimmed it down, it became 2.5 inches. I don't want to use that because that's the size of my border. So I went ahead and I took the next one, which is this here. I took it to the ironing board with my fabric. I laid it out, folded over my fabric on this side, because remember now I don't want the bias, so this is the lengthwise. And I put this down to make sure it's the correct size. So if I lay it on my die right, it will cut it out with a little bit to spare. Okay, so that's one side. And I need to cut my selvage off here because I don't want any of that in there. And I tried to trim it the best I could, and I'm going to have to go back up there, I think, and iron this. Okay. Because now what I want to do is I want to fold this side. And I think that will be enough right there. Let's just turn it this way. And this side here, so see, that'll be enough to catch it and get that size, because this is the size I'm aiming on now. So I can do this right here. I'm trying to think. Oh, I better not, because I don't want to, I mean, I'm pretty sure it'll cut the 6. This is, oh, this is, yeah. This is going to be 4 pieces and 4, which is 8. I'm pretty sure it'll cut 6, but I don't even want to chance it, because this is all I have left of this fabric. And if it doesn't and it jams, I'm out of luck. So let me go ahead and just cut this here. To put it on our die, and I am going to run it through just like that. I'm going to go ahead and cut this right here while I got it. I'm going to be safe than sorry. I'm going to cut it right there. Okay. And then set this aside for something else. Get this ready. As a matter of fact, I can go ahead and pull it up and get it all in there so it'll all get cut. Now don't worry, if you take your hand and you rub it on there, you're not going to cut yourself. You've got to push on those little sponges, just in case y'all are wondering. Okay. Alrighty. Hopefully I got it on there pretty good. Put it up here to show you right there. Okay. Okay, here you go. Put the other one on it. I'll run it through. I got this. I'm going to have to check that. The camera's acting up. There we go. And there we go. So those are cut also. Except I didn't, let's see here. I might be picking and choosing on these, I don't know. Maybe. 1, 2. I might only use these darker. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind. But anyway, I'm not sure if I'm going to make half square triangles or I'm going to make whatever I'm going to do. But I'll think about it, and then I will show you what I've gotten, what I've decided in another video. So that's it for this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Click on the little bell so you can get notifications when I put up other ones. I'm going to try to put up one a month of the Go. And I want to welcome all my new subscribers. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.